What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Luke. Different place, same guy, bringing you the same live stream as per usual, but we're up here in Atlanta, East Lake, boots on the ground today. Was able to see a lot of the action, a lot of information to bring you guys. But more importantly, we've got some time to bang out this live stream. I've kicked my buddies out of here. They're down the street, giving me some time to go out there and actually do what we're doing here with the stream. And we're going to have 30 minutes for that. So we'll be a little bit quick about it. We'll still cover questions, everything like that, but going to be a little bit quicker about it. So let's go ahead and start with the course, which, boy, oh boy, was it pure. It rained like hell today. We're expecting similar weather throughout the weekend, so we'll talk about that extensively. It did play relatively soft. Plenty of iron shots that were holding greens. I mean, Cameron Young hit about a 210-yard 4-iron into number 18, and I hit it to rate about 10 feet. So you are going to see a little bit better scoring this year than what you saw most years, but we saw that last year as well, right? Came up here for the 2021 version, and we pretty much had the same exact forecast. So what we saw last year is almost a carbon copy of what we can expect this year. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. I can see a lot of you down there in chat already. So what's going on? Hopefully you guys are having a great start to your week. But let's talk about the golf course. So it was playing a little bit more receptive. I mentioned that, but the greens were still lightning quick. These players were trying all of those around the green shots. I mean, Xander and Patrick Cantlay, on 18, they sat on the short side, just hitting little bump and runs for like 10 minutes. So much so that Victor Hovland sat in the background on 18, with just hands on the hips, was like super annoyed, very pissed off because he wanted to finish his practice round, right? He was on 18 waiting in the fairway by himself. So all of a sudden he yelled up to them, walked up, hit his shot into Xander and Patrick Cantlay. It was quite the scene. They were laughing it off. They were like, okay, you should have just said something. He's like, I did. He's like, I did. I yelled 4 and then I hit into you. It was a pretty funny moment, but they were practicing those around the green shots. That's why it took so long, because it's still running really fast. So if you miss around here, it's still going to be the East Lake that we love that penalizes misses, whether it's off the tee with that Bermuda rough, you have a little bit of water in play, but most importantly, when you miss greens, you're in a world of trouble, right? You're dealing with that Bermuda rough. Most of the areas around the green have rough rather than fairway areas, and the ones that are fairway are Georgia rough, which is by far the hardest rough to chip off of in the PGA Tour. It usually comes off a little bit spinny, a little bit high. So they were really practicing it. You could tell they were grinding on those shots. At least Patrick Cantlay and Xander, who both have been unbelievable at this golf course. So, I mean, if they're out there practicing those sort of shots for 10, 15 minutes a hole, especially that one bump and run on 18, I mean, they sat there, hit at least 20, 25 balls a piece. They're expecting it to still play pretty fiery. So even with all of this rain, don't be fooled. It's not going to be a birdie fest where somebody actually scores like 20 under par this year. It's going to be something like 12, maybe 15 under par at the very best that somebody gets to in terms of a raw score, if not something closer to like 12 or 13 under, like we're used to seeing from year to year. You can see a lot of you down there in chat. We do have some whiskey poured up. No, it is not an entire glass of whiskey. It's mostly ice. It's a little bit of crushed ice. So no, I'm not slinging a whole glass of whiskey down during the stream, but we're having fun. We're on vacation here. I drove at 3 a.m. this morning, so I'm running on fumes at this point, but got my lineups in. We're here for the live stream. Bottoms up. Hopefully everyone's enjoying their Wednesday night. That's some good whiskey. That's some, I believe it's Elijah Craig there this time. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to having, but when you make it in an old fashioned, it usually tastes all the same. Let's go ahead and catch up on chat, see what's going on. Again, I got to keep this relatively quick this time because we have a half an hour. We got Wilson Dog down there. Let's go. We got Robert Babb. What's going on, Martin? He says the last event. Yeah, it's the last event of this season, but luckily President's Cup next season right around the corner. So that's the one great thing about golf, right? We don't wait 6 months between the season like we do for NFL. That's the beauty of it. We have Austin down there, Robert as well. Big Tex down there in chat. Nick Marr says, why did I think that was a weight golf clubs behind you? I don't even know what it is. I think there's I think those are the flowers that you see there. Yeah, I'm in a kitchen right now, by the way. I meant to mention that, right? I don't have my studio, right? I'm in the Airbnb right now. Behind you is a road. There's actually like a panoramic set of windows behind you right now for where the camera is coming from. It's beautiful. I have a great view, but you guys have a view of my my kitchen because I don't want to have the camera going outside in case something really crazy out there happens. Heck, I don't know, right? Someone might see me recording and do something silly out there. So I didn't want to do that. George is down there. What's going on? Last event until 9:15 when the new season starts. That's right. Yep, right around the corner. I got Jeff down there. He's saying to look at data golf for Cam Smith. Yeah, I'll look at it for 2020. I haven't done so myself, so I have to look at that. James says, let's give it up for Luke, only DFS guy who actually goes to the venue. Yeah, I do it at least four or five times a year. You'll love to see it. Travis down there, Whiskey Wednesday for the boys tonight. Like I said, dude, I got some Elijah Craig here. Definitely a Whiskey Wednesday, that's for sure. We need your buddies. Yeah, I kicked them out. They're probably going to be back before then, so you'll probably see them. Some freaking guys. Luke, have a great time. Yeah, we're going to have a good time here. We got Nick down there. Let's go ahead and continue with the golf course breakdown. We'll get back to chat with questions a little bit later. Let's talk about the weather. So weather is going to be a huge storyline. Here on Windfinder, it doesn't tell the story at all. They don't have any of the thunderstorm risk on here, but on Thursday, I believe it's a 50% risk of thunderstorm in the area. At least that's what the local forecasts are saying. Everyone's been talking about the weather because of how crappy it's been the last month here. And on Friday, I believe it was like a 70 to 90% chance. Now it's kind of lowered. I believe it was closer to 70 the last time I checked. It was a 90% chance of thunderstorms this morning. So you're going to have a delay, guys. It's inevitable at this point. If you're going to try and look at the wind gusts and, find an edge, it's going to be non-existent because they're going off at the same time anyways, right? So we're looking at the weather here for one reason only, really just to see the baseline conditions, which at this point, on Thursday, relatively low winds, 6 to 7 miles an hour is the maximum in terms of your sustained winds. Same thing for Friday. For Saturday, so we go to forecast here, which tends to be a little bit more inaccurate. You can see it's even worse, right? It's 1 to 2 miles an hour. On Sunday, it's beautiful, right? 6 to 7. So you're going to get some cells that come through, perhaps a few thunderstorms here on Thursday or Friday. But if they end up missing during the actual time of play, you're going to be looking at ideal conditions, particularly if it rains before play. Let's say the thunderstorm comes through 8, 9 a.m. They'll be teeing off right around 11:45. It's going to be the first tee time locally. I'm going to be there at 11:30. I'll be there for the first tee time. It's going to be ideal conditions, right? If it happens during play, whatever, right? They'll stop their round. They'll get back out there. It's something you can't really account for this week. There's not going to be an edge to playing the guys that tee off at 11:45, as opposed to Scotty Scheffler, who's teeing off at 2:05 p.m., right? He's going off last because he's starting in first. He's not going to be in any different conditions than when the guys that are growing off early. So, even if you're looking at like the firmness of the greens, right, trying to take the guys that go off first because of that, or the pristineness of the greens. I mean, first off, it's a 2-hour difference. They're already teeing off at 11:45, so the greens have baked out for quite some time. And 30 guys have walked on the greens. We really think it makes a noticeable difference to get us off of some of the guys that are in the lead anyways. It doesn't, right? So if you're playing showdown, there's not really a strategy to be had when it comes to tee time stacking, nor for 4-round lineups. So that's all we wanted to talk about with the weather. I guess I'll talk about the golf course in general here. Just because we talked about like the weather, what I saw today, I'm going to talk about a few things I saw with players, and then we're going to talk about the golf course too. So let's start with players. First things first, Hideki Matsuyama. I watched a lot of them today. He was on the range. One of the only players on the range, believe it or not, after 3:30 p.m. I mean, most of them are just on the golf course doing their thing. But Hideki Matsuyama was working on the swing. That can be read of one of two ways, right? He's working on the swing. He's putting in extra work. Great. The back's not an issue. I took a few videos of him out there. I sent it to the guys on the Patreon. He looked fluid. I mean, athletic. Didn't look like the back was hurting him, but he was working on his swing. He was having the left to right miss. He was flailing after almost every single shot. And it wasn't because he was hurting, right? It was because he hated the golf shot. He looked like complete shit today. But time and time again, guys, just understand, we've gotten a range report from somebody, not myself included. I usually don't do range reports, but I've heard them from other people in the industry, and then they go out there and win the golf tournament, right? So don't fade him because of that. If anything, I look at it as the positive, right? I'm looking at all the extra work showing that he's pretty much past the injury. He's a good course fit, right? When he's his best, he's a great off the tee player, relatively accurate, great iron player. That's what we're looking for here. Firestone's similar. TPC Southwind, he's had success at. It's a similar type of golf course. I like Hideki. So I wanted to see how healthy he was today, and he looked healthy. Of course, wake up before lock, right? Make sure he doesn't withdraw, but he should be good to go. He looked like he was swinging fully. It wasn't dealing with any sort of issues. A few other players, Cam Smith, I did not see. Now, I showed up at 1:30 p.m., so he could have been there early in the morning, could have not shown up at all today. So I have nothing for you on Cam Smith. I know a lot of people were going to ask about that. No information to bear there. A few things I noted. Colin Morikawa, every single shot was a fade. So he didn't have any of the straight balls. He didn't have any of those random little draws that were sneaking in from time to time for him over the last month or so. Every single shot was moving from left to right. However, he was not very happy on the range. He was complaining a lot after every single shot. He was looking exasperated from time to time. So it wasn't like he was just like, oh, whatever, we got to do this. He was looking at his caddy and putting his head down, that sort of thing. You don't like to see that from somebody on the range the day before. But just like I said with somebody like Hideki, time and time again, those sort of guys go out there, are absolutely rock solid, even from round one, let alone over the 4-round sample size. I don't think it's a reason not to play Colin. I also look at it as he started having that left to right ball, right? Every shot was on that same shot shape. I think that's a positive there too. So again, take the positive and the negative with both of those range reports. That's what I saw. Brace face looked horrible out there. Matt Fitzpatrick, he was like by far the worst ball striker on the range. I hate to say it, like his ball flight looks a lot more like an average golfer than it does a PGA professional. Sam Burns was hitting little knockdown wedges. It was beautiful. He was also practicing his off the tee driver off the deck. For whatever reason, he was hitting driver off the deck and he was absolutely mashing it. And after he was hitting it, he was turning back, looking at the crowd, kind of flexing, that sort of thing. So maybe he was doing it to kind of show off, which I guess would make sense. He had quite a large crowd around him. Same thing with Scotty Scheffler. He was kind of showing off out there. All he did was mash drivers on the range. And there's a couple ways to look at that, right? He was either working on the driver or he's so confident with everything else that he just wanted to, mash a few drivers out there, then get to his practice round. Either way, that's all Scotty Scheffler hit out there. For his practice round, I think he may have hit like 1 or 2 irons at the very most, but something like 50, 60 driver swings. So it's, again, there's not really that much to look into there, but I figured I'd share, right? I was there on property, saw it. The greens were still running 12.5, and that was after a large shower today. So with the drainage that they have at East Lake, you're not going to expect them to run slow. It's not going to be like Caves Valley. Anytime we get a really wet week, we're going to expect thunderstorms on Thursday and Friday. You'll get that narrative out there that it's just a birdie fest, right? They're going to absolutely take this place apart. That's not the case with East Lake. It's a world-class golf course that has world-class drainage and, most importantly, a world-class superintendent and staff there, field staff, that not only has sub-airs on property that could suck a lot of that moisture out. They don't want this to be a birdie fest, right? Like I follow all of them on Twitter. This is like one of the golf courses I really nerd out about. The superintendent on Twitter, like all week, has been like, please no more rain, please no more rain. And it's obviously, obvious the reason why, right? He wants this to play a little bit more difficult, right? He wants East Lake to have that little bit of a bite to it. So knowing that the superintendent wants to do that, right, that gives us a little bit of knowledge, right? We know it's, even with this rain, it's probably going to play a little bit more difficult, or at least I think average difficulty most years. Like, I don't think it's going to be that much easier this year. The one thing that I think might be different is that on the par fives, I think you're going to see more eagles, right? That Cam Young shot today that I saw really sticks out. I mean, he mashed it down. I was on 18, by the way. Hole 18, it's 580 yards. He had about a 360, 370 yard drive, and then mashed a 4 or 5 iron into the green. And he hit it to 10 feet. And it, bounced, maybe took a 5-yard hop and then rolled out 3 or 4 feet. You don't see that at East Lake. Typically that type of shot would be in the rough over the green. And then getting up and down for birdie is, far from a certainty at that point. Cam Young walk up there and made the eagle putt, right? I do think that those type of swings may matter. So I'm looking at power guys a little bit more, right? Usually this is more of a driving accuracy course, more of a plotter, keep it in play, all about, hitting fairways and hitting greens. I think this year you might see more of the power game, because out of the rough, you're going to be able to stop the ball a little bit more because it's a little bit more wet, even wetter than last year, frankly. And then, on those par fives, you might be able to get it close, like Cam Young did today. And by the way, I'm playing Cam Young in bunches. Already was playing him, but after I saw that today, I was like, yeah, I'm sold. Are you kidding me? Xander Schauffele, by the way, after he hit that, just turned around and looked at him and just shook his head as to say, like, what the heck, dude? Like, no one does that on hole 18. Really, no one does that at that hole, right? Can hit a shot and stop it there at 10 feet. That's the type of stuff you're going to see this year. It's going to be maybe a little bit easier on those shots. But for your average hole, it doesn't really change all that much. You're still going to have those tucked pins. When you miss, you're going to be in a bunker that's really hard to get up and down from. And the greens here are just devilish. They suck, right? So it's still going to be a good test. Let's talk about some of the players, though. So let's go through this player pool. There's only 30 guys, so we're pretty much going to touch on everybody. And it's a lot more about strategy this week than it is actually picking players. I'll just start with this. There's 30 players, or 29 players playing this week because Willie Z withdrew. By the way, Willie Z did withdraw, so if you didn't know that, you know it now. I'm playing 21 in my player pool. I'm playing 150 lineups, right? There's a few that I'm matching the field on. In fact, there's more than a few players that I'm just matching the field on this week in terms of their ownership. And I'm taking my stands up top. I think that's how you have to play this if you're going with 150 lineups. Now, if you're going with a single entry or 2 to 3 max, which frankly, I would recommend most people out there play a single entry, play a 2 to 3 max this week. Playing 150 lineups, you can match the field on players. You're going to take a lot more players, a lot higher percentage of the player pool in your set of 150 this week. So it's a completely different build. I mean, you have to think of different ways to get unique, whether it's setting rolls, setting an exposure cap, right? Setting like, 70% max total exposure in terms of your projected ownership. There's a lot of things you have to do if you're building 150 lineups, which I enjoy, right? I enjoy that part of DFS, but your average player out there, probably the average person watching this, for 150 lineups, that might be a little bit overwhelming. So I would not fault you at all this week for going out there and just doing a 2 to 3 max, even just playing something like a single entry this week, and just hunkering down in your top 6 plays. So let's talk about everyone up top. So we're going to start with Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler this week, I think he's a great play. I mean, I have him in plenty of my lineups. He's coming at like 25, 30% ownership. I'll give you the range there. He's somewhere in that range. I thought it might be higher. I thought he might be like 40, 50% projected owned, but it looks like people aren't all that sold on just taking the 2 guys up top, right? He's 13 grand, nearly 14 grand. There's a lot of opportunity cost in taking somebody that's that expensive. And a lot of people seem willing to, and I guess I kind of underestimated that there on Monday. People starting with like a Rory, or people starting even with like a Sam Burns, and really taking a lot more balanced build, because I mean, you have guys in the 7K range that are normally $9,500, right? Like Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, for example. So it's wonky pricing. You can make a lot of interesting builds, particularly if you kind of skip those guys up top. So they're not nearly as highly owned as they may have expected there on Monday. So getting leverage on Scottie Scheffler is not nearly as difficult as I would have expected. So I'm certainly still getting over the field on Scottie Scheffler. And really, if you want to play Scottie and Patrick Cantlay this week, it's more than doable. You can get leverage on both players if you want to. So I could not fault you for doing so. I do have to say that I don't think it's necessary, though. So let's talk about the whole strategy thing this week. The placement points starting on Thursday, I'm almost looking like they don't exist, because last year, Jon Rahm, Patrick Cantlay, they cracked the optimal lineup. That's what everyone remembers. That's what everyone's acting on this year. It's why I thought they were going to be higher owned, is because they paid off as chalk last year, right? They were number 1 and 2, and they finished it both in the top 5 of the actual scoring. It doesn't usually work out like that. Usually number 1 and 2 played a little bit safer. They usually score in like the top half of scoring because they are coming in with form. They're, number 1 and 2 players on tour for the year. Obviously, they're going to have a lot higher chance of going out there and having a solid day. But they usually don't smash. Usually they're not number 1 and 2 in scoring. So I mean, I could see a realistic scenario, right, where both of them aren't in the optimal, right? Scottie Scheffler nor Patrick Cantlay ends up in the top 6 players on the pool. And starting maybe with Xander Schauffele, for example, who loves the golf course, who's only starting 4 shots behind, is how you get to the optimal lineup, right? And I know plenty of guys are going to start lineups with Xander this week. I just think it's a little bit more attractive than people are giving it credit for. And in fact, as of right now, he's the highest exposed player in my personal player pool. That would be Xander Schauffele. A lot of it comes down to price. It's more affordable than the guys up top. I also just think he's a better course fit. and arguably playing better golf than both players. Let's talk about, well, we talked about Cantlay. I like, kind of lumped him in there with Scotty Scheffler. I think they both make sense. John Rahm. So John Rahm at $10,900. I really like him here. I don't know if I'm personally going to be able to get him in my pool as of right now. He's not in it, but he has good course history, great iron player, good off the tee in terms of his accuracy. Just guys I like a little bit more, right? I like Xander. We just talked about that. He's my highest exposed play. I really like Rory McIlroy here. I think, his course history speaks for itself. I think that with the softer conditions, what I saw today with the Bombers potentially being able to hold greens a little bit more with that higher ball flight, that plays directly into Rory's skill set. So I like that even more about it. So I like the guys around him maybe a little bit more than John Rahm, but I think he's a great play here. Cam Smith, he's like the ultimate X factor. I think he's going to be a lot lower owned than the industry is projecting. So because of the injury concerns, I didn't even see him out there today. There's not been much on his status out there in the media. I did think he might be a little bit lower owned than he probably should be. So if you're looking for that game theory play, that pivot that might be a little bit risky, that's definitely somebody that you could get to. But there's a lot of risk there. So I just want to preface it with that. Sam Burns, love him at this golf course. Today, he was hitting a lot of those soft-armed, dead-armed wedge shots. His off-the-tee play was beautiful. He looked like he was having a lot of fun out there. He loves Bermuda. He's won twice at my number 2 comp course at this point. Innisbrook was like number 5 to start the week, but as I saw the golf course today, I see the similarities there. I also see the similarities with, so we have the Valspar Championship. I'd say Quail Hollow even. I kind of saw that just walking around Eastlake today. All the elevation changes, the undulation in the fairways, tree-lined fairways, Bermuda greens. Relatively long golf course. That's Valspar Championship to a T, but that's also kind of Quail Hollow. So I am looking at that too. And Sam Burns, he hasn't played at Quail Hollow, but he's won twice at Valspar. And he would model well for Quail Hollow. So it's, that bomber that's solid with his irons, that plays well on this surface in terms of putting, checks a lot of boxes for me. So I'll definitely be playing Sam Burns. That has not changed. Tony Finau, I think he'll be a popular play. I think it makes sense, from a course fit perspective. He definitely checks every box you're looking for. Everyone up top, right? It's going to be a broken record at this point. They all make sense. You're just going to have to pick your guys. You're probably, I think the easier way to do this, to be quite honest with all of you, if you're playing 150 lineups, pick 3 guys from Tony Finau and up. Actually, let's include Justin Thomas there. 3 guys from Justin Thomas up that you're not playing. Pick the 3 that you like the least, right? Cross them out, and then you can pretty much play the rest, right? You might have to match the field on a few guys. You can get leverage on a few up there as well. That's what I'm doing this week, right? With only 30 players, only you playing 20 in your player pool. That's the type of stuff that you're going to go with there. So that's what I'm doing there up top. I think the best way to go about it is to just pick your 3, 4 that you're not going to be playing and go with it. The reason why I say only 3 or 4, right? Typically, let's see, right? You're dealing with 10 players, right? There are 9 players. Yeah, I would say play 4, maybe 5 of them at the very most, right? I'm saying to play maybe 6 of them, or maybe even 7 of them if you only want to take out 2 of them with from Justin Thomas up. That's because there's only 30 players in the pool, right? If you were in a 150 player field, right, you couldn't do so, right? But with so many guys in the field, right, you can play 20% of somebody, have 30 lineups, and have more than enough combinations to cash in on that player. And in fact, your lowest exposed player this week is going to be like 20%. Maybe 15% if you're just trying to take a sprinkle of somebody. That's more than enough with 150 lineups, 15%, to maybe cash big with that sort of player. It's enough permutation. I shouldn't say permutations, enough combinations to feel somewhat comfortable that you might get close to a near optimal lineup with them. So that's the argument here. It's more of like the NBA type of philosophy where in NBA, the optimal lineup never wins. It's always, a pretty far from optimal lineup that's winning. You just want to have as many shots to get to that as possible if you have the 6 or 8, 9 player lineup over there that hits. You want to have like those 8 or 9 players in your pool, maybe 20, 25% plus, and then just hope that you get that perfect combination. This is, I kind of equate it to an NBA slate, to be quite honest with you. That's how I'm playing this. And that's the strategy I'm taking up top. It's not as aggressive as I typically am from week to week. I'm playing it like some people that maybe match the field on players. I know some people do that week to week anyways, right? Not just add a 30 player field. I'm willing to take that type of strategy here. Whereas in other weeks, I think it's usually a pretty fish thing to do, but I don't think it is necessarily this week. Let's go ahead and catch up on chat, see what's going on there. Where are we at? Let's see. We have Nick Mars down here says, I bet Hovland wasn't practicing around the green like he should have been. He wasn't. He was hitting a lot of iron shots on the range, and then he was hitting just, a regular practice round. He spent a lot less time on the greens and around the green than other players. Yeah, dude, it doesn't help his brand, and it certainly doesn't help the case that I make against him that he doesn't work very hard on it. George says, Whiskey Wednesdays, I am a Russell's Reserve single barrel. Hey, cheers to that, boss, man. You're just reminding me I need to take a sip myself, right? Alrighty. He says, welcome to my world where your day starts at 3 a.m. Yeah, dude, I'm not a morning person, that's for sure. They have Ray Flores down there. What's going on? Mary Golf Miss Wilson Dog says, I absolutely love it. DePeach, thank you. I absolutely will enjoy the trip. Nick Mars says, soft courses, do we lock Kawa and Connors? So at a soft course, there's so many different ways that it could play. So it has to be soft plus course type. Soft plus East Lake kind of spells like bomber to me because all of them are going to be good approach players. Soft plus short golf course is all about driving accuracy. That would be all about guys like Colin Morikawa, Corey Connors. So I think it depends on the golf course. For me, probably kind of siding towards the bomber narrative. So kind of like a Roy McIlroy, John Rahm kind of thing. Devin says, have you heard any news about Cam Smith's hip? I'm curious if it's still an issue. Yeah, I'm still wondering the same thing. I have heard nothing about it, and I didn't see him on the golf course either. So I don't have any news for you, unfortunately. Nick Tay says, at work and behind on the stream, can you give some insight on Finau and Harman? So yeah, Tony Finau. So Tony Finau, I kind of just talked about it, but I think he makes a lot of sense. Coming in with decent form, right? Didn't look that good last week, but the ball striking has been there for quite some time. I think he might be a little bit lower owned than JT, clearly. I think JT probably going to be higher owned than him when it's all said and done, no matter what the projections say in terms of ownership. I think JT, just with his name recognition, always gets a little bit of an extra bump. I think Sam Burns is getting some extra steam, partially caused due to me, right? I mean, it's not really the people that follow me, but a lot of people using that same logic, right? They're kind of catching on to the Sam Burns thing. I like Tony Finau. I think he might be a little bit lower owned than I expect to. Maybe people are getting bored of it, right? After last week, right? He kind of struggled. Maybe people are not buying in on him. So I could see it with Tony Finau. And he also asked about Harman. So Harman, he likes himself a short course. That's where we see him consistently play well. But you see him pop at pretty much any type of venue. You've seen him at Erin Hills, which was like nearly 7,800 yards, come in second place at a major. He's played well at other tracks over 7,500 yards. He's also struggled at them, right? As you'd expect for somebody that's short off the tee like a Brian Harman. He's just got to hit a bunch of fairways this week. I'm playing him in my player pool, so I'll give you that one, right? I'm playing 21 out of 30. 29 players, right? So I'm literally playing a ridiculous amount of the player pool anyways. Yeah, Brian Harman's somebody I am playing. Grant TV says, saying hello, new to your channel. Love to have you here, Grant. Hopefully you enjoy. Gary Kerr says, in Showdown, do all players start with the same score? They do. Placement points aren't a thing for day 1, 2, and 3 Showdown. So you're just looking at the raw scores, which I'm going to be playing Showdown for sure because that's a good way to get some exposure, just watching in person. Max Howell says, if you were playing Showdown tomorrow, who would you like more, Morikawa or Thomas? Justin Thomas for sure, or Cam Young. It would still be Justin Thomas. I think the pricing between them should be, relatively drastically different, but definitely Justin Thomas. And Max Swinger says, hey, Luke, nice work. Joined the Patreon last week. Awesome. Is there any way you can post a link to the Discord? You have to, so message me on, actually on Patreon. I can't post it here or else like 50, 60 people will join, right? So message me on Patreon and I'll get you one, Mac. I can't post one here in the chat, or else everyone will be joining. But let's hop back into this. We talked about the guys above 9,400. I guess Justin Thomas, I kind of just glossed over, maybe because I don't want to pump up the ownership on him, but great golf course fit, right? Loves the golf course, has a lot of success here. Definitely playing JT. Sungjae Im's going way under the radar, right? He's -4. I don't really have that much interest in playing him. In fact, he's one of the guys that I'm not playing for this week. So maybe that means to go out and play him because I have no reasoning for it, right? He was coming into decent form. He's a decent course fit, just not really flashy. There's no reason I'm running to the window to play him. So nothing I can say poorly about Sanjay, right? I mean, in this field, guys, I mean, we get to the bottom. There's a few guys I'm going to point out that I don't think are great plays. But up top, like literally just pick your guys, right? Maybe pick the 4 or 5 guys that you're not playing above 8 grand and build that way. I think it's easier to do so. Cam Young, we talked about. I love Matty Fitz, brace face himself. I am still playing $8,800. He looked horrible today, though, right? I mentioned that on the range. He could not hit the broadside of the barn. Kind of like Hideki was flailing his arms left and right. I'm still going to be playing him, though, which sucks because I hate race face, but I can't let my range report change my exposure. I've seen it so many times on media, right? Whereas I don't think people are lying about the range report. I just think like legitimately these guys just have bad days. And then the next day, sometimes they completely snap out of it. Victor Hovland, he looked kind of rough today. I mentioned that he wasn't doing any work around the green, but I think he's an intriguing course fit, particularly if it's playing a little bit softer. Joaquin Neiman, just an average play, honestly. Hideki Matsuyama, we talked about the injury risk earlier. He looked great today, though, right? He looked really loose out there. Looked like he was swinging there with full intent, wasn't holding back whatsoever. So I think Hideki should be good. I'm definitely firing him up. Corey Connors, I'm fading. This is mostly due to his putting. I just don't think he has the upside to actually get to like the top 5. Like he's in a world-class field, right? For him to get to the top 5 of this field starting at -1, it's going to take a Herculean effort. Like one of the best rounds ever, one of the best tournaments ever from Corey Connors. I'm not betting on that, especially when he's chalk this week. I don't understand it. I think he should be a low-owned play, like a pivot play. He's being owned like one of the core plays in that range. Colin Morikawa and Jordan Spieth are the core plays for me. I kind of called it to start the week. I thought they'd be chalky, and they're actually being a little bit overlooked, a little bit lower owned than at least I definitely think they should be owned higher than where they are. Jordan Spieth has good course history. He looked pretty decent last week for most of his holes, just had some blowups that kind of blew up the score. And speaking of blowups, Colin Morikawa had a 2-hole stretch where he shot +8. Was in contention on Sunday. And if you're looking at box scores, well, you'd probably thought he had a bad week. That's not the case. He had an excellent week, Colin Morikawa. The conventional putting grip was working, and the ball striking was back to where you like it. And today was hitting that left to right shot. So I'm definitely all in on Colin Morikawa. Max Homa, I saw him on the range. Really just looked like Max Homa. I mean, there was nothing of note. The shots were pure as per usual, with his jolly old self on the range. I guess just a positive report, right? Max Homa was doing Max Homa things, which is always a good thing. He's one of the strikers out there on tour. Scott Stallings is like mega chalk. He's like 30% owned on this slate, which I guess makes sense because he's starting at -3. He's only $7,400. But like I kind of mentioned, with the guys up top that are at -10, these guys at -4, -3, like I almost hold no weight to it. Like you're starting in what, like 10th place, great. You're going to start with like 5 placement points. I mean, that could be gone in 2-3 holes if he starts like 1 or 2 over par, right? He could be in 25th place by the time he ends up being on his 3rd hole because everyone ahead of him, was shooting like 1 to 2 under, and now he's back to even par. These guys that are mega chalk because of their score down here, you should probably just fade them. Like from a game theory perspective, the guys up top, I don't think you can make that same type of argument, right? Like, they're all solid plays. They're in great position. They're going to get placement points too. I don't think that that's a great argument to make unless you just blindly fading one, hoping they suck. Taking that route. I mean, these guys down low, you can make that game theory argument, right? It actually makes sense to try and fade these dudes. So, yeah, Scott Stallings, Sepp Straka, maybe less so Sepp Straka. Like he's not getting the ownership though. Scott Stallings he's like nearly 30%. Sepp Straka, when I last checked, was one of the lowest owned players on the slate. So maybe you play Sepp Straka over Stallings, right? Because Sepp's starting at -4, right? Stallings is starting at -3, and Sepp is coming in with crazy form. Unbelievable. Maybe the best form of anybody in the field. So I think he's still a good play. Horschel loves the golf course. He's definitely a solid option down low. He's getting ownership, though, as he deservedly should. Sahith Theegala is way chalkier than he should. Like, he should be one of the lower-owned guys, maybe like a Sepp Straka. Because he's not coming in with solid form. He's not really the best course fit with his driving accuracy, but he's not, right? He's relatively chalky because people love playing as a hit for Theegala, right? He's a fan favorite already. He's getting that bump like a Jordan Spieth, a Justin Thomas get because people love playing them. So Probably a fade for me. I'd rather take the guys around him, like an Adam Scott who's coming in with form. He's actually right around that same ownership level and is coming in with form as as opposed to Sahith Theegala, who's not coming in with form. So for me, I'd rather make that one-to-one decision to the guy that's actually playing well of late. Cage is a pretty solid option. He makes a lot of birdies. Brian Harmon, we talked about how he's still a decent course fit despite not hitting in a long way. Aaron Wise, I do like too, just an absolute ball striking fiend. He's like one of the highest owned players on the slate, though. In fact, I think as of my last run, he might have been like number 3 in terms of ownership. So if you want to just blindly fade somebody down low because they're highly owned, it's probably Aaron Wise. I'm actually taking a stand on him slightly under the field. I think I'm taking 30% in my player pool, which one run I had like 32% ownership and one had like 28. So it's kind of just splitting the middle between the two projections and me trying to match the field essentially. That's what I'm doing with Aaron Wise. I'm taking like a do not play stand. Essentially, he's not going to kill or make my week in either direction. JT Poston, I like. He's coming in with form. He looks good on the range too. Is hitting a lot of wedges and hitting them to like 4 or 5 feet on the range. And Tom Hoagie, $5,000, right? He has a lot of utility just because of his price, because you can use him in combination of somebody like a Sepp Straka and get a lot more firepower to take somebody there at 13 grand, right? To, play Scotty Scheffler and still maybe take somebody above 9 grand. You got to take somebody like a Tom Hoagie, a JT Poston, for example, or Adam Scott, KH Lee, all these cheap sort of players. There's quite a few lineups I have that have like 2-3 guys priced $7,200 and below, right? Really stacking the bottom of the board. So I can take 3 quote-unquote studs, that studs and duds type of approach. Definitely something that I'm going with. What we're going to do now to finish up this live stream is go over some of the questions in chat. So if you have any, go ahead and throw them down there now. Again, we only have 30 minutes, which I'm already over the time for, by the way. So we're going to have to get through these quickly. So let's go ahead and see what we've got. Let's see. Where are we at? Wilson says you should do XFL football. I just won't have time for it, man. I'll be doing NFL, though. Same thing with showdown slates for football. Nick Tay says, thanks for all the info this season. I'm loving PGA DFS. We'll get you Patreon then. Highly recommend it, dude. I mean, I post all the information on there. But more than that, it's community. I answer all your questions. There's a lot of extra info given the Patreon, and you get one-on-one coaching there. You actually learn how to play DFS. It's one of the best values, I think, in all of the industry. So definitely recommend checking it out. Jack says, I think Eastlake are one of the truest putting greens along with Bay Hill. So if Cam Smith can find enough greens, he can make a ton of birdies. I agree with that. The greens looked really pure today. I worry about his health, right? That's the one X factor there. Nick says, did you not see Jordan today? I did not see Jordan. I would have fanboyed over him. I would have sent pictures in the chat. Martin says, Hoagie, Nick's best friend. Yeah, Tom Hoagie's I think he's going to have a good week, to be quite frank with you. I'm playing him for sure. He's starting at -1, so he's starting way back on the board. He could be last year's Kevin Na for all we know, right? I mean, Kevin Na wasn't coming in with form last year. He wasn't even a good course fitter. He's a short player off the tee. Why not Tom Hoagie? Why not somebody like JT Poston, for that matter? Why not Max Homa, right? Why not Max Homa this year? Why doesn't he go off, make his way up the leaderboard? I really like those kind of low-owned players. Egg Tech says one and done, last chance to get in first play. So I don't know who you've used, but I'll give you some ideas. You're going to need to get a lot of money here. I'm guessing you're coming from relatively far behind, but even need to win first place. And you got to do it on your own, right? So, obviously Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay don't make any sense, even if you have them available. Let's see. I mean, the answer here is like a Cam Young or somebody like a Matty Fitz that's starting at -3. I don't think anybody's going to use them in your one and done. John Rahm will be used, right? So, I mean, he's at -3, or else I would say him, but people are going to think about that. Same thing with Roy McIlroy. He's going to get picked. So if you're trying to, get unique, actually move the whole way up the leaderboard there, Big Tex, Cam Young, Matty Fitz makes a little bit of sense. I mean, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, same scenario, right? Maybe a little bit lower tier players. They're starting at -1 and -2 respectively. So they're also dealing with issues a little bit farther down the leaderboard. But yeah, I'd say maybe a Cam Young or a Matty Fitz. I think that's kind of the Goldilocks zone at -3. These guys in like the 9K range, upper 8K range. that are a little bit lower owned in DFS too. Those are the type of guys you might be able to be unique on, like the only one in your pool that takes it. And who knows, right? Those type of guys are more than capable of winning the FedEx Cup. I mean, Billy Horschel's won it before. We've had surprise winners, people well past their prime winning at Eastlake. We've seen crazier things happen. Barnes says, are you taking any outrights? Great question. I should have touched on it. I wanted to touch on it at the beginning. Hey, we've only had, like a third of a glass of whiskey at this point, and we're forgetting things already. Good thing we have you around there, Martin. You asked the important questions. Yes. So with strokes, I made a few bets. I bet Xander with strokes, starting there at -6. Didn't get great value on it, but I thought it was worth firing there on Monday. Without strokes, there are a few guys I bet at the bottom of the board. So Jordan Spieth, I bet without strokes. I also bet Hideki Matsuyama on Monday without strokes, and I bet Billy Horschel too. So kind of scattershotted it. Took two guys that have course history in a Jordan Spieth and a Billy Horschel. And with Hideki Matsuyama, it was just betting on his health, right? The numbers all over the industry, whether it's on DFS, whether it's on the sports books this week, were really low on Hideki because of the quote unquote injury. And last week he looked fine to me. Like he looked like Hideki Matsuyama of old. I mean, he was hitting woods out of the rough to like 260, 270. I mean, that's what Hideki Matsuyama does week to week. He's not doing that with a back injury. I mean, today just backed it up even further, right? So I like that even a lot more now. Those are the bets that I took. Nick Barr says, me and Hoagie have a complicated relationship. Yeah, I know it's a very love and hate. When he wins you like 10K at Pebble, right? It's pretty hard to hate him there. I know you didn't like him so much last week. Big Tech says, Young was your thought. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think Cam Young makes a lot of sense. Michael says, how do you sign up for the Patreon page? So there's a link in the description of the video. It's the Patreon link / Gsluke. It's $10 a month on there. So you join that, message me. I'll get you the Discord link as well. And I post all my spreadsheets, showdown content, all of the prize picks, props that I'm putting out, also the write-ups that I do for prize picks, everything that I'm putting out there. And a lot of extra information on the Discord that's getting posted pretty much 24/7. So a lot that you want to catch there. So one thing I'll say too, and I almost forgot another part of my live stream, right? We have a little bit of time here. They're still not back yet, which is slightly concerning. I hope they didn't get lost down there. They went to the bar real quickly. We're going to have a drink or two, but we know sometimes a drink or two turns into 4 or 5, especially when it's those knuckleheads that are out there. Let's go through a few builds here. So what we're going to do here is go through like a single entry together. We're only going to do one lineup. For the large field GPP, like I said, you just take as many combinations of the guys that you like as possible. You leave salary on the board. I mean, I have lineups that are leaving 2K on the table this week. It's not really rocket science. You just kind of scattershot for a large field GPP. Let's talk about the single entry though, right? You can be a lot more strategic there. And in single entries, I think that Scheffler and Cantlay are going to be even higher owned. Also Xander Schauffele, right? People are going to try to play it quote unquote safer there, right? I don't really think you want to do that, right? This is actually where I think you want to pivot off of those sort of players. So in my single entry, I'm kind of starting here in the 10K range, right? Starting with a John Rahm, maybe. You could probably take John Rahm and Rory McIlroy together just because of how soft the pricing is down low. And just to give you an idea, right? Let's say you really like Tom Hoagie and somebody like a JT Post in here. You take those two, right? You still have $9,000 remaining for your last two players with two 10K guys already, right? Take your favorite 8K option, right? Maybe even, top of the 7K, somebody like a Colin Morikawa or Jordan Spieth, and finish it off with another 10K guy. Probably like a Sam Burns. Maybe you have enough for somebody like a Cam Smith down there. You can make lineups that are super studs and duds, right? 3 guys over 10K, 1 guy in the 8K, and then 2 5K guys. I love those sort of builds. Whereas, if we started this with a Scotty Scheffler, for example, you're down to $7,700, right? You take somebody like a Jordan Spieth, for example, then you're down at $7,500, right? You can only fit in 2 studs. I think people are going to get caught with their pants down this week, trying to be a little bit too safe, right? Trying to be like, ooh, I've got to lock in those points that really might not mean shit by Sunday, right? Especially if they have a lackluster week out there. So in single entries, that sort of thing, I'm probably fading those guys up top. It's kind of a big balls move, right? But I think a lot of people are going to be cowards this week. I think people are going to go out there. They're not going to put their nuts on the table, and they're going to be seeing like 40%, at least I'd say like 30% ownership on like Scotty Scheffler, and maybe like 25 to 30% on Cantlay, whereas he's a little bit lower than that. as of right now for 4-round contests. So that's what I'm looking at for single entries. In GPPs, like I said, just like scattershot it. Just, I hate to say that, right? Because, in 150 lineups, pick your 20 favorite players and just take as many combinations as you can. Don't play more than 50% of somebody. I don't think you have to in this sort of pool. I think like 40% is a good max number to play when it comes to your 150 max pool, and just build a lot of combinations, get a lot of different players together in lineups, right? Maybe set a few roles to only take a couple pieces of chalk in the same lineup together from the same range. Whatever the strategy needs to be, go with that sort of thing and rock it. That's what you're going to do for a large field GPP. And 2 to 3 maxes, I think it's kind of similar to the single entry, right? Ownership's probably going to pivot towards the guys up top, maybe a little bit less so, because in 2 to 3 maxes, people for whatever reason are a little bit less scared, right? They're willing to put their nuts on the table a little bit more. In cash, in cash, you see, so in cash, honestly, it's just so contrarian. Like, no one's going to say this week. No one's going to play cash like this week, which typically is horrible. Typically, you want to play like everyone else with cash, but I think everyone's playing suboptimally this week. So I'm going to put my nuts on the table with this. I think the optimal cash lineup this week is to be super balanced. So maybe take, a couple guys down low. So let's see. I really like Aaron Wise, right? He's going to be super chalky. So maybe you take him down low. And in the 6K range, maybe you go to, actually, maybe to the 7K range, you just take Colin Morikawa and Jordan Spieth, right? So by starting with these 3 players, you have $9,600 remaining. You could scattershot this 10 and, 9K range with your last 3 shots. I think that type of lineup is going to be optimal when it comes to just pure out scoring this week. Whereas the opportunity cost with, going and taking somebody like Scheffler instead is it takes us out of that range completely. Right now we have $7,600 remaining and we have to live in the 7K range once again. Whereas, if we remove it, we can live in this 9K range. We can just take 3 of our favorite players on the slate right there. Like a Burns, we could take Tony Finau, and I think we might even be able to play Justin Thomas in that lineup. Maybe be able to fit all 3 of those players. I like that lineup a lot more than, again, taking Scotty Scheffler, then only having $7,600 remaining. So I think it's going to be contrarian. I don't think many people are going to do it this week, but that's how I would play cash lineups. Like 100 million% guys, I would not be taking one of those 2 guys up top. I think the salary is extremely prohibitive. And from a median standpoint, I don't think it's going to get it done. So that's all I've got for you guys. If there's any more questions, I'll touch on them. It looks like there are. Ray just says, Rombo, I do like John Rahm this week. Like I mentioned, he's a great course fit. He's kind of coming on at the end of the week for me. With those soft conditions, the fact that I think bombers are going to play a little bit better this week. Somebody I'm considering a little bit more. In fact, probably might sneak into my player pool. We'll have to see. Wilson says, can't wait for Carl Juan to be on the tour. He's probably going to be like Tom Kim or so. Yeah, Juan is a stud. He hits the ball a long way, and he's had that sort of pedigree, that kind of reputation for a while now. So I agree with you there, Wilson. And Martin says Patreon/Gsluke. Yeah, that is how you find the Patreon page for Michael there, Michael Dobash. So that's all I've got, guys. Again, I got to hop on out of here before my bonehead friends get here and completely crash the live stream, which I'm assuming will happen any second here. But best of luck with all of your lineups for this week. I'm going to do my best to try and do a live stream afterwards. It may actually be a combination of my prize picks and my showdown stream. So we'll probably do the showdown stuff first, cover some prize pick stuff at the end, just to consolidate it, because obviously I'm up here sharing a space with a lot of people. Might be tough to get content done. But if you're looking for that, guaranteed, it will be on the Patreon page. There will be all the spreadsheets, all of the write-ups as per usual. So if I'm not posting here on the channel, it will definitely be there for you guys. So again, guys, best of luck. I'm really looking forward to it. I will be out there for the first tee shot, and I'll catch you guys later.